So if we get an offer of £10 million for one of our players, I'm pretty certain it'll be the best for the football club to sell him. Will that impact on our chance of promotion? Probably. Highly likely. If you said to me, we'll get 5 bids of 100 grand for 5 of our players, would it be beneficial to sell them all? I'd probably say no. This is David Artell, and this is in the manager's office.
If we could just rewind a bit, was there a moment during your playing career or coaching career that you knew you wanted to become a manager, or was it more an outcome of circumstance? Because I believe Crewe offered you the job.
I certainly didn't apply for it. And I have to say, it's not something that I, thought I'd end up doing. Obviously others did, namely the chairman and the directors, but I was quite happy being academy manager and getting us through the audit. I love that job. It was a terrific job, because it's a terrific academy with brilliant staff. And I was grateful for that opportunity.
But did you expect it, or were you shocked when they came? Did they call you in? Or
yeah, I had a phone call. Can you come up to the ground? And I thought it was about other stuff that were going on at the time, because I'd been called up to the ground a few times, so it weren't abnormal. There were other things going on. And I walked into the boardroom, and the chairman and one of the directors were there and said, right, this is what's going to happen, and we'd like to offer you the job. And I sort of looked around for a camera to see if I was being filmed, and I just said, right, okay.
On the spot, you just said you didn't have to think.
No, I just said, okay, why me? And I'll just run it past my wife first before I fully commit, because she's the boss.
Yeah.
Or she's certainly the boss in our house. And you come back the next day and everything's sorted.
How do you juggle bringing players through and getting them in the first team, giving them game time, with pushing the club forward on the pitch?
That's the toughest element of the job. I have to say, at this football club, it's vital that we develop players, but we develop them in the first team. We've got Charlie Kerr, I think he played 50 odd games before he even scored a goal. He probably weren't ready for the first 30 of them games to be on the pitch. I think he'd probably admit that himself. But we put him on, and we have faith in him putting him on. We then start him, and we have faith in starting him. Will he cost us games? Well, he might, because he's a forward, he might not cost us games in the sense that we'll concede a goal, but we might not score the goals with someone else on the pitch. But then the reward is that when they do come good, you know that you've played a major part in their development and in giving them a career. Yes, they've got to work hard, and yes, it's their career, but we also know that we play a huge role in developing them. I coached Charlie at 16, and Harry Pickering and Callum Ainley and Tom Lowry. There's half a dozen of them that I've coached at younger age groups. Luke Offord, a young pro, I coached at 13. There's loads of them. So you've already got a relationship with them. So then when you give them the opportunity, they know that they already know that they can trust us as staff, me as a manager, and I also know exactly what they can and can't do. Does that help? Not always, because it might cost us the game. It might, or not cost us the game, impact on the game. But then that's part and parcel of, developing a footballer, developing a football team, and having the restraints of the budget of this football club. I knew all that before I took the job, so it's not a complaint. That's just how it is. That's how we cut our cloth. That's our business model, and it's proved successful over a number of years. And I'm certainly not going to go against that, because I think it's the best model. I do.
I know you wouldn't want to get ahead of yourself, but say if you're still in a great position come the January transfer window, does that make it a bit harder to keep hold of players, or would you? Obviously, Crewe's business model is to make a lot of money from these young prospects. Would that, because you'd be in such a good position, would that then be difficult? Would you be like, no, stay, and we see how it goes down later on down the line?
I'd always ask myself the one question that I always do: is it the best for the football club? Then is it best for the player? That's the order. So if we get an offer of £10 million for one of our players, I'm pretty certain it'll be the best for the football club to sell him. Will that impact on our chance of promotion? Probably. Highly likely. If you said to me, we'll get 5 bids of 100 grand for 5 of our players, would it be beneficial to sell them all? I'd probably say no. I'm very fortunate to have got a brilliant chairman and a brilliant board of directors that support me as best they can. You know, in such a stable club. We've obviously seen the news over the summer with Bury and other clubs that are in financial trouble. There's one across the Cheshire border there, or still in Cheshire as it turns out. You know, Macclesfield that are struggling. And there's a few clubs like that up and down the country that you might not hear as much of, but you know, we're a very stable club, and that's because of the prudence that the board and the chairman, you know, take, if you like, the stance that they take. Would I like more money? I think every manager would like more money to spend, but then that doesn't always bring success. I think it probably rarely brings success at our level, unless you spend an absolute fortune. So we know exactly what our business model is, we know exactly what the plan is. We've got to get the best out of the players while they're here, and if they leave in January, they leave in January. If they don't, then they might leave at the end of the season. If they don't, then great, they're still with us. Hopefully it's in a higher league with us.
Is your own managerial style and philosophy influenced heavily from your time in the academy at Crewe and playing for Crewe, or is there a particular manager you played under or worked with that's had a big effect on you?
My time here as a player was not revelationary, but for large parts I'd been told to head it and kick it as a defender in the lower leagues, which I felt did me a disservice. Come here, Dario goes, no, get off the goalkeeper and start playing. You're a good player. And suddenly it's like, oh, here we go, I'm going to learn lots in a short space of time, and I did. But then that's not to say that I didn't learn off all the other managers. Ronnie Moore at Rotherham, for example, who was there for 6 years, he was a tough manager, but a really honest and fair manager, and he was a good manager. And you learn a lot, especially as a young player, because everything's new as a young professional. And then there were other managers that I thought, I'll never do that in a month of Sundays. So you learn what not to do as well at times. But like I said, once you're here as a player, as a coach, you understand that there's a formula that works, there's a development plan that works, there's a pedigree of player that comes in that you've got to make sure gets into the first team and hopefully plays higher.
If we could just touch on your time, you had 7 caps for Gibraltar. Could you just tell us how this came about, first of all? And did you face Germany, world champions? Yeah.
Yeah, that was an experience. My grandparents were in the Navy. My dad was born in Gibraltar. I don't know if he got in touch with them or they got in touch with him. Next thing, I get a letter and say, do you want to come over and play a couple of friendlies? I can't remember the first one I was against, but it was a good experience and real formative and fledgling domestic league in Gibraltar, and you know they've come on leaps and bounds already. You know they've won games of football now at the highest level, at the international level, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. Like I say, I think 3 months after they'd won the World Cup and beat Brazil 7-1, we was in Nuremberg facing the world champions, which was an experience in itself.
I know every day's different, but could you just run us through a typical day at Crewe or in your office?
I usually get in any time 8:30, so not that early. Probably been on the phone before that in the car. Obviously train, come back in, have a bite to eat, phone calls, text messages, emails. If the lads are training in the afternoon, they'll be in the gym just through there, so I can keep
an eye on them through that.
I can keep an eye on them through the glass there. Yeah, you can hear them. 3 or 4 o'clock, we'll sit down and we'll talk about what we've learned, what we need to do, who's done well, who's not doing well. Either nip home something to eat and then go to a game. So it never stops. It's just every day is different, but there's a general pattern.
Is there anyone who's knocking on that door more than others? Staff or players?
1 or 2 players always like to know, but I don't mind that. I think some managers gets under the skin. I think some managers try and avoid it. I think it's terrific. If a player comes and knocks on my door and says, how do I get in your team or why am I not playing? Then I think they've got a right to know. And I think that's even if they get in for one game and out for one, in for one, out for one. If they come in every time they're out of the team and want to know why, I've got no reason in telling them. No, you know, I think that's the right attitude to have, because you're not going to get better if you don't know the reasons why and understand the manager's opinion and reasons. So there's 1 or 2 players that always like to know, which is fair enough in my book. There's 1 or 2 members of staff that are always after my time. But again, That's comes with the job. It comes with the territory. And although I'd like 29-hour days, it is what it is.
We're at your office at the training centre now. I don't know if you have an office at the ground. Do you ever speak to other managers after games? Yeah, is that quite a common thing, or is that?
I always say when we're at home, by all means come in. I'll always be there. Win, lose or draw. If something's happened on the sideline, you said something to me or I've said something to you, we'll have a beer and we'll forget about it. It's not always happened away from home. And not every manager's
not always been invited away from home.
Yeah, not always been invited. I have to say, I think it's more of a British thing. I think there's a few foreign managers that have been in League Two that it's just not their culture, which is fair enough. I don't expect to be invited, far from it. But I think there's just a mutual respect of it's a tough job, a real tough job, and win, lose or draw at the end of 90 minutes. Go and share a beer and we'll chew the cud and discuss whatever we want to discuss, kind of things. But it happens regularly, I have to say, but not all the time.
Right, David, thank you very much. Thanks for your time.
Brilliant.
Good to see you.
Thanks very much.
Best luck for the rest of the season.
Thank you.
Cheers.